I'm just gonna do a little bit here and there real
some
quick.
3-player Tetris here.
Actually 4-player. I have.
Can you play it just 3-player if Jesse's gonna be filming?
Oh yeah. I suppose we can play a 3-player.
Cool.
Nice. And my mom's clapping at the dogs, and everything's falling. Freaking gravity! It busts me. It confounds me. Ah! Organized chaos. This is my creative method. Hey, I just gotta plug in my Switch dock because I didn't have enough plugs left to do this, and figure out how we can. I got 2 pairs of Joy-Cons, obviously, so see if we can play Tetris this way.
Use those.
Yeah.
I'm trying to set up here, see if we can all play with these Joy-Cons. In that case, I gotta find the regular basic controller I have. Nearby, we're
gonna need to find that.
GameCube adapter, maybe.
It's alright, I got
Yeah,
no,
GameCube
no,
adapter.
we don't have GameCube.
You got
We
the
don't
Pro
have that
controller?
option. No, I don't have an adapter for GameCube.
Do you have the Pro controller?
I have a Pro controller, I just don't know where it is right now. The dogs are barking, they're driving me bonkers. It's definitely does not get boring around here.
Yeah.
It's not focused right now. I you know, I'm gonna try an Xbox controller, see if I can plug that into a USB port. See if that'll work. Plug this into the puss.
Alright. Now let's see. Will a Microsoft controller be compatible with a Nintendo system? Is the moment of truth. No.
No! Dog, shut up! You do that one more time, I'm gonna be like.
Let's just make the video find the controller. I'm kind of serious about that.
Up,
Alright.
up.
Oh, here we go.
Alright.
Hey.
Right when you said that.
I just need to turn it
There's no batteries.
on.
Oh.
It has batteries, I just gotta turn it on.
I understand, yeah.
Those dogs, oh shut up! I'm gonna bark my head off! Yep. Guys, attention with stumpitude. Alright.
I'll go ahead and do the intro, I suppose. Hey guys, it's Kopitz. I'm here with Christine Weston Chandler and the Gamer from Mars, or Art. Today we're going to be playing some Tetris 99. It's going to be a fun time.
Working on this.
When we last saw Chris Chan, he was left heartbroken after his first girlfriend, Blanca Weiss, had revealed herself to be nothing more than a catfish scheme created by trolls. His video message after the fact made it seem like he had spiraled into a horribly depressive state, and many expected him to take an extended hiatus from the internet to recover. Shockingly, less than a week later, Chris was seen chatting on the forums of the Sonic Chew fan website. In these conversations, Chris revealed that he was dating a new woman named Chloe, who he had met while pre-ordering a Little Big Planet at GameStop. He never mentioned Chloe again after this, and the timeline he gave would mean that he started dating her while he was still with Blanca, so most people believe that he made the whole thing up. Christian had proven that, no matter how badly he was hurt, he would always come back for more. As such, trolling attempts only escalated from there. On October 31st, 2008, a troll went to Chris's house and left a sign reading Encyclopedia Dramatica on his front lawn. This didn't elicit a very big response, but it did mark a significant turning point. The internet and the real world were becoming increasingly merged. Even if Chris did log off, the trolls would still be there. And just a few days later, a website called Quickie was founded by a user named CogsDev. This was an archive dedicated solely to the documentation and discussion of Chris's antics, something almost unheard of for previous trolling victims. It was around this time that Chris Chan was informed about a young man named Ryan Cash, who was a big fan of the Sonic Chew comic. During Chris's initial feud with ED, when he was holding the release of Sonic Chew No. 7 hostage, hostage until the site was taken down, Ryan was reportedly so distraught by the prospect of never reading any new Sonic Chew comics that he decided to take his own life. To everyone, it was obvious that this story was made up in yet another attempt to prank the autistic 20-some-year-old man. Well, obvious to everyone, that is, except for Chris himself. After some pressure from people like Vivian Guy and Panda Halo, Chris included a short tribute to Ryan in one of his update videos. However, many people saw this as insincere due to his lackluster delivery, as well as the fact that it was sandwiched between two completely unrelated announcements.
And for Ryan Cash and his family, I feel for you and I'm sorry, but best thing you could do for Ryan and yourselves, just to move on. Try to be happy. Gee, so much power. That's a lot worse than when that child locked himself in the room after seeing Optimus Prime die in the original movie. And then also on the PlayStation Network on the home.
Around this same time, Chris received an email from a man claiming to be Takashi Tezuka, a highly successful video game director at Nintendo.
While working at Nintendo, I have heard about your original character, Sonichu, from many of my coworkers who read emails sent from your fans who are asking for a Sonichu game. I eventually received a message from Shigeru Miyamoto that we at Nintendo should take the first step into creating a Sonichu game. That is why I am programming in 2 new characters into Animal Crossing City Folk, Sonichu and Rosechu. If a large number of players enjoy Sonichu and Rosechu, we will create a Sonichu game with the help of Sega.
Tezuka even included a couple of screenshots of the Sonic Chew character in Animal Crossing. As can be expected, Chris did not catch on to the fact that this was a troll. He had made no secret in the past that his dream was to one day make an official Sonic Chew game with Nintendo and Sega. Now it appeared that that dream was being delivered to him on a silver platter. A few days later, the same prankster emailed Chris again, this time posing as Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda. For good measure, he also sent emails pretending to be a lawyer for Nintendo named James Zilberstein, or just Jay-Z for short. This was all done as a small attempt to clue Chris into the fact that it was all a joke, but he never caught on. In fact, on January 6, 2009, Chris posted a video announcing the exciting news that he was working directly with Nintendo. He also stated that, for legal reasons, he had been advised by Nintendo to go back into his old comics and change the names of characters that were based on real people. Chris obliged the troll's orders, and soon after, every issue of Sonic Chew that had been published received these new edits. Sarah Hammer became Nicole Rammer, Wes Isley became Walter Grisby, Megan became Meg Chan, and Mary Lee Walsh became Slawwell Ryam. Later that day, the troll emailed Chris under yet another alias. This time he was pretending to be Greg Mays, a web designer hired by Nintendo to help spruce up the Sonic Chew website in advance of the game. Blinded by excitement, Chris happily handed over the password to his website without question. This resulted in it quickly being taken offline. Greg emailed Chris blaming the outage on Sega filing a cease and desist order against the project. At this point, Chris finally caught on to the fact that he was being trolled, although he still was unable to see the full extent of it. Despite understanding that Greg was a fictional character, Chris was still convinced that every other person in the storyline was real, and that he was truly in contact with Shigeru Miyamoto.
Now listen, sir. I want you to restore all the files you've deleted from Sonichu.net, the Sonichu and Rosechu fan site, CWC's Pokesite 2, and the other CWC sites that were on there, where I will have my lore, his people of Nintendo, and the people of Sega, even the power of Mr. Miyamoto himself, bring in a tracking team, track you down, and force you to restore Sonichu.net and all, with a cruel, beating up, terribly painful punishment. You do not want to remain on my bad side. My fangs are sharp, and I can thirst for blood, even though I am Cherokee, not a vampire.
Chris followed this stern email with a vlog in which he expressed the same sentiment, even repeating the threat about his fangs.
You're getting it, so just listen to me, you jerk. Re-upload it. or we're gonna rain heckle on you, because I'm not afraid to show my fangs.
After the fallout with Greg, Mr. Chandler continued emailing with Miyamoto to discuss the possibility of meeting in person. A big sticking point with this was Chris's inability to pay for a plane ticket to Redmond, Washington, where the Nintendo of America offices were located. He tried multiple times to get Miyamoto to pay for the flight, but he refused, berating Chris for being unemployed and unable to pay for his own ticket. Despite the now abusive comments from the supposed top creative at Nintendo, it's still unsurprising that he fell for the story given his track record. What's more perplexing is that at a certain point, Christian brought in his parents to talk with Miyamoto, and they too seemed to believe the hoax. Barbara began to help Chris negotiate with the gaming giant, and took the opportunity to boast about how prolific she and her husband had once been in the business world, though it was riddled with grammatical errors and disjointed sentences. Trolls noted that even though Bob and Barbara apparently had such deep knowledge of business dealings, they didn't find anything odd about the fact that such an important executive had reached out to Chris directly, and why such a large company was refusing to pay for airfare. From there, the talks merely went around in circles for a while as both sides refused to back down from their positions. As the Chandler family continued their correspondence with Miyamoto, on January 12th, Greg Mays returned to the story. This time, he revealed himself to actually be Jason Kendrick Howell, the original troll who created the Encyclopedia Dramatica page in the first place. This unsurprisingly was just another lie, but Chris took the bait without question. As Jason was still holding Chris's website hostage, he offered him a deal. He would return the domain name if Chris posted a video coming out as either straight or gay, with the choice being up to him. Chris unsurprisingly chose the latter in an incredibly short video, and held up a poster of Britney Spears as proof. Jason was not satisfied by this offering and demanded Chris make a longer video. In this upload, Chris goes into great detail about how all his life he had gotten along better with women than he did with men. He even holds up a copy of a Playboy magazine this time as further proof of his heterosexuality. The troll was much happier with this, though he wasn't done just yet, asking Chris for one last video where he would film his parents telling Chris how proud they were of him. Christian at first agreed, but it seems that it was never actually filmed, as he apparently decided that it would be easier to just make a new website rather than continue to jump through hoops for Jason's amusement. Shortly thereafter, a new video was posted announcing the creation of SonicChew.info. That same day, Jason sent Chris another email, revealing that he was not actually Jason at all. It was just another pseudonym used by the true man behind all of this, Clyde Cash, the brother of Ryan Cash, who you might remember as the boy who had killed himself over Sonic Chew. Clyde vowed revenge against Chris due to his brother's death, and had devoted his life to making him suffer. Even the famously gullible Chris did not believe this story at first, instead thinking Jason was just lying to get out of trouble.
Very interesting. I will know Clyde Cash as your nickname among my printed written information I have of you when I go to the police department to report you. Hey, do me a huge favor. Stand in the middle of heaviest traffic and get run over. I pray to God and Jesus for your death, Jason Kendrick Howell.
As time went on, Chris would eventually accept Clyde Cash as real. Many trolls would use the name as an alias, and Chris would come to know Clyde as his arch nemesis, the mysterious figure pulling the strings behind every trolling scheme in his life. After his grand entrance, Clyde formed an organization called the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, or PVCC for short. This was named after the villainous organization from the Sonic Chew comic series, which itself was named after Piedmont, Virginia Community College. knowledge. Clyde's version of the PVCC was meant to be an elite team of only the best trolls, who would team up to devise new ways to mess with Chris. After revealing himself, Clyde's first act of trolling was to hack into Chris Chan's account and send an email to Miyamoto pretending to come out of the closet. Please keep in mind that Miyamoto and Clyde Cash were being played by the same person, but Chris was not privy to this fact, and was thus horrified when he discovered what had been sent from his account. He quickly established that he had been hacked and reaffirmed his heterosexuality. Mr. Chandler also posted a video directed at Miyamoto in order to confirm his identity. In this upload, Chris held up two pieces of evidence: his custom Sonic Chew Wii remote and nunchuck, as well as his driver's license. In another amusing detail, Chris chose to open the video by bowing to the camera as a sign of respect. With the introduction of Clyde and the PVCC, the line between reality and fiction was beginning to blur. The trolls were turning Chris's life into one of the Saturday morning cartoons he was influenced so much by as a child, complete with heroes, villains, and soon enough, love triangles. Because as hard as it may be to believe, there was yet another trolling effort running perpendicular to the Miyamoto saga. Before going any further into today's story, we'll first need to jump back to December of 2008, before the Clyde Cash saga even began.
I hate the homos. I actually do have a past story, as I have realized from repressed memories back from the Greene County days. But I will not go further than that, because y'all would have a field day.
Around this time, someone going by the name Cassie Rosechew informed Chris that she had created a message board called Sonic Chew Girls, where Chris's female fans could gather and discuss their love for him and his comic. The users of Sonic Chew Girls all heaped compliments onto Chris, treating him like a king and all saying that they would happily have sex with him. Chris clearly loved having such a large harem of women singing his praises, and in February of 2009, he even went so far as to ship Cassie Rosechew a box full of locks of his hair, which she was meant to distribute amongst the other Sonic Chew girls. Reportedly, his hair was greasy and had an unpleasant smell. Of all the users of the message board, one stood out from the rest, a young woman named Julie Milvana, better known by her screen name of Blue Spike. Now, Chris had not met Julie on the Sonic Chew Girls message board. She had emailed Chris a few weeks prior and the two had quickly hit it off. Unbeknownst to Chris though, Blue Spike led a double life as a member of the PVCC. At the time when Chris and Julie's relationship began to get more intense, Chris had also restarted a romance with his old flame Sarah Mackenzie, aka Panda Halo. During one night on the Sonic Chew Girls message board, Julie was expressing her displeasure with this relationship, and she believed Chris would be much happier with her. It seemed as though Chris agreed, as he stated he would break up with Sarah in order to date Julie. At that moment, Sarah just so happened to join the chat, and was immediately horrified by what she saw. The three of them began arguing, resulting in Julie leaving the chat and threatening to kill herself. To this, Chris would only say, "Damn." After things calmed down a bit, Julie returned to the conversation, and Chris revealed that he had feelings for both girls. Eventually, he could no longer handle the stress of this discussion and logged off for the night. It would appear that Christian used this time to think about his decision, which was revealed on January 5th with the release of a new Sonic Chew episode. Most of the story was a fairly standard, albeit bizarre and borderline incomprehensible Sonic Chew adventure. The only notable part is at the end, where Chris talks about his struggles choosing between all the women who had been throwing themselves at him lately. He states that the decision was made easier when two paths were taken away with the help of God and Jesus. He starts by bringing up Sarah Jackson, the girl he had been talking to a few months prior who he believed had died in a car accident. Chris chose to memorialize this deceased woman by depicting the moment of her death, and including a drawing of a truck ramming directly into her car. He also brings up Jessie Ruddy, another lady he had been talking to who had revealed herself to be a troll. He ended this section by proclaiming Sarah Mackenzie to be his true sweetheart, officially completing his love quest. Chris did not even mention Julie in this comic, so it's entirely possible that it was completed before he started talking to her. Either way, at the time, he remained devoted to Sarah. Later in January, Chris engaged in an internet relay chat, or IRC, with Clyde Cash along with his friend and popular entrepreneur Billy Mays. In this convo, Chris's immediate priority was to try to get Clyde to be nicer to him. He started by once again offering his condolences for Ryan's death, and tried to relate to him by mentioning how distraught he was after the passing of his dog Patty. This strategy did not work, as it only angered Clyde, who derided Chris for daring to compare a dog to his brother. Chris still doubled down on this point, claiming to have loved Patty as though she was a sibling. He also made an attempt to gain Clyde's respect, claiming that he was courageous for enduring being trolled for so long. Unsurprisingly, these strategies proved unsuccessful, as Clyde and Billy Mays seemed more concerned with finding new ways to annoy their target. Things continued with Christian being tormented by his inability to lose his virginity despite having so many women throwing themselves at him. Clyde brought up the subject of Chris's then-girlfriend Sarah Mackenzie, who he claimed to have raped, a point Chris seemed unfazed by. The troll then decided that the only way to truly infuriate Chris was to resort to a tried and true method, calling him a homosexual. He brought up the now infamous image of Chris wearing his mother's underwear, citing it as proof that he secretly liked men. This is what made Chris finally lose his temper, as he tried in vain to convince Clyde that he wore traditional male underwear most of the time. This angry outburst resulted in Chris stating, "I have numbers of pairs of dirty crapped briefs." The unprompted admission to frequently soiling himself became another prominent meme in the Chris Chan trolling community, and only further cemented people's desire to anger him just to see what outrageous thing he'd say next. The following day, Chris and Clyde engaged in another IRC, this time joined by his girlfriend Sarah Mackenzie. Sarah started by confirming that she had indeed been raped by Clyde, and added that she was now pregnant with his child. Sarah offered Chris an ultimatum. If he managed to turn Sonichu into a successful franchise, she would become his wife and raise the child with him. This barely seemed to affect Chris, as he even gave Sarah his blessing to move in with her supposed rapist if she chose. Ultimately, this trolling attempt proved not to be very fruitful, although it would more or less mark the end of his relationship with Sarah. This breakup would not keep Chris down for long though, as he decided to immediately jump back into things with Julie. The two of them began talking frequently again over Mumble, a voice chat application similar to Discord or Skype. Julie took the opportunity to deepen the lore of her character. She told Chris that she came from the fictional country of Molvania, and that her homeland had been in the midst of a political upheaval after the assassination of their dictator. Chris almost Googled it to check the legitimacy of these claims, coming so close to finally figuring out that he was being lied to, but Julie talked him out of it. These conversations also had the tendency to get a bit sexual. Chris apparently had spent a long while thinking about what their first time together would be like, as he went into graphic detail describing every aspect of how he imagined that night going. He talked about how they would begin with making out before moving on to intercourse, and described which positions they would take and the order in which they would use them. He even stated that he planned on eating a good deal of strawberries beforehand in order to make his fluids taste better. Julie was fully supporting this discussion all the way through, telling Chris that she was getting aroused by the thought of it. It appeared that all was going good until Clyde Cash infiltrated the chat and began tormenting Chris. They seemed to fill the classic archetypes of hero and villain, with Julie acting as the damsel in distress. The autistic man's arch nemesis threatened to harm Julie unless Chris gave in to his demands. He was to make a 3-minute long video in which he told the world he was gay. Chris agreed, although he formulated a plan to beat Clyde at his own game. On February 5th, 2009, Chris posted a video in which he appears to come out of the closet, though secretly doesn't. Let me explain. You see, Chris was unwilling to make the coming out video for his nemesis, so he instead figured out a loophole. In the video, rather than saying he was gay, he instead referred to himself as a gaybian. This was his made-up term for a male lesbian, in other words, a man who is attracted to women. In addition, Christian also hid a number of clues in the video so his true fans would be able to tell he was not being entirely truthful. He held an Optimus Prime toy, which he had previously referred to as a symbol of true masculinity, and displayed a Sailor Moon poster in the background to show his love for women. He also chose not to wear his Sonichu medallion, which his fans knew meant that he was not telling the truth. To put it simply, Clyde was not impressed, demanding that Chris do it again without the word gaybian. Chris relented, but only on the condition that Clyde leave Julie alone after it was finished. The leader of the PVCC agreed to these terms, but he still wanted to be able to send her chocolates and flowers. Chris apparently thought this was an acceptable compromise, and he posted the new video later that same day.
I'm gay. I'm gay. I'm gay. I said it.
It was clear that this was a man who could not handle the slightest notion that anyone might believe he was attracted to other men. And the very next day, Chris posted a video clarifying that he had only pretended to come out of the closet to protect Julie, despite the fact that he had no concrete proof that she was safe from Clyde just yet. Christian also addressed another demand Clyde had made for him to clean up his room and get rid of some of the toys in order to appear more mature. Chris claimed he had already gotten started on this task by showing a destroyed vibrator he had received for free with a large order from the adult website Adam and Eve. Despite claiming to have never actually used this device, he believed that getting rid of it would satisfy Clyde's desires. Chris's next video would address the Black Saturday bushfires that had been sweeping across Victoria, Australia at the time. He expressed concern for Sarah Mackenzie, as he hadn't heard from her in some time, and thus was worried she had been killed in the natural disaster. Many mocked Chris due to the fact that the fires were nowhere near the part of Australia that Sarah lived in, let alone the fact that she was not real. Regardless, he proceeded to beg Sarah to contact him to confirm if she decided to stay with him or go with Clyde. He apparently still viewed Sarah as his sweetheart, despite his sexual conversations with Julie since the last time he had spoken to her. Chris and Julie also continued to have sexually charged chats over Mumble at around the same time. She was able to get Chris to reveal even more embarrassing details about himself, most notably being that he would occasionally drink his own semen, or as he would call it, recycling it. As he explained it, by consuming the fluids, he would keep his sperm count high and ensure that none of his potential future children would be lost. In addition, Christian admitted to having semi-frequent intrusive thoughts telling him that he was a homosexual. He even told Julie that he had inserted some of the Adam and Eve products into his rectum just to see how it felt, but he did not enjoy it. The love-struck man obviously believed he was telling Julie these secrets in confidence, but as always, they would quickly leak onto the internet. Not only was Julie a troll, but several other members of the PVCC would often lurk in these chats, recording them to find any new insight into Chris's life. Some of these people also took the opportunity to mess with Chris further. On Valentine's Day 2009, as Chris and Julie were engaged in a particularly sexual discussion, pranksters began calling the Chandler family's landline in order to get his parents to walk in on him. They eventually succeeded by telling Bob that Chris was planning to kill himself, which prompted the elderly man to run in on his son, catching him with his pants down. This caused Bob to get very upset, as he threatened to take away his adult son's internet privileges. His choice words of, "Get away from the internet, I'm cutting it down right now," earned Bob the nickname, the Lumberjack. Only a few days later, a video titled, "For Julie's Eyes Only" was leaked onto a porn website. This upload showed Chris completely naked as he had intercourse with his blow-up doll while calling out Julie's name. It quickly gained an impressive 3 million views, becoming one of the most watched Chris Chan videos of all time. When he confronted Julie about it, she claimed that her little brother, Max, had hacked into her account and leaked it. The next day, Chris had a conversation over Mumble with Clyde, and a few other members of the PVCC, or as they were now calling themselves, the Miscreants. The trolls seemed to be relishing their new roles as cartoon villains, altering their voices and mannerisms to be as over-the-top and evil as possible. Clyde stated that their mission was to keep Chris a virgin for the rest of his life, mirroring Mary Lee Walsh's goals from the Sonic Chew comic. They may have been trying to provide a fantasy for Chris, but perhaps on the same level, Chris was providing a fantasy for them. Clyde and the Miscreants dropped many large revelations on Chris during this chat. They revealed that not only was Max one of them, but so were Blanca Weiss, Jason Kendrick Howell, and Sarah Mackenzie. On the subject of Sarah, Clyde also assured him that she survived the bushfires. As this was happening, Max took control of the Blue Spike account and began using it to message Chris. He told him that the Miscreants had kidnapped Julie and were holding her hostage at their secret headquarters in Cleveland, Ohio. A few days later, Chris received an email from Clyde reaffirming this claim, and adding that they were planning to ship her off to China. They then gave Chris an address where he could supposedly rescue her. Now by this point, Chris had proven himself to be able to believe some pretty outlandish things, but most of the Miscreants thought that this was still a bridge too far. Even if he did believe the story, many assumed that he would not actually go through with the journey. Surprising everyone though, in the early morning of February 25th, Chris got in his car and began making the drive to Ohio. He departed without telling his parents, choosing instead to leave a note informing them of what was happening. This was the first time Chris had ever left the state by himself, so when Bob and Barbara discovered the note, they began to panic. The distraught parents called the police and tried to file a missing person case for their son, but when Chris gave them a call upon reaching the outskirts of Cleveland, they calmed down. Chris arrived at the address the Miscreants had given him a day later, but when he rang the doorbell, he was greeted by an elderly woman who had never heard of the names Julie or Clyde Cash before. Even after he was told that no person of his description lived there, a suspicious Chris asked around a few neighbors' houses before realizing that they didn't know anything either. He proceeded to drive home. Despite the whole ordeal being nothing more than a wild goose chase, Christian Weston Chandler seemed to be in high spirits after his solo road trip. This was the most independent thing he had ever done, and this taste of freedom seemed to excite him. Even the trolls had to applaud Chris for being willing to step so far out of his comfort zone to rescue the woman he loved, even if it was just a prank. Their reasons for making him do it may have been cruel, but in a strange way, the end result seemed to be a positive one. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for what would come next, because on March 3rd, Chris was once again hacked, this time by Max, who took control of his website, Yahoo, and PlayStation Network account. This resulted in a long, infamous Skype call between the two of them. While Max's side of the recording is a bit unintelligible, whatever he was saying clearly made Chris viscerally upset. He told Chris that the Miscreants were still holding Julie hostage and gave him a choice. He could either save Julie or get his accounts back. Ultimately, Chris chose to save Julie. After the decision was made, Max began threatening to put Chris's PSN account up for auction on eBay. Even though he had chosen Julie, Christian still begged the troll not to go through with it. He didn't even seem to mind if he didn't get it back. For some reason, he was just desperate for it not to be sold. And this is when Max saw an opportunity. He began making ludicrous demands of Chris in order to keep the account off of eBay, including dancing for him him, as well as making love with the manager of the game place. At some point, Max made fun of Chris by accusing him of not having genitals. While no video recording exists of this conversation, based on Max's reaction, it can be inferred that Chris exposed himself on camera to prove him incorrect. After some deliberation, Max's demands became focused on Chris's Sonichu medallion. He tossed around ideas for things Chris could do with his prized possession, including setting it aflame and ejaculating on it. Ultimately, the troll decided on the cruelest thing possible, making Chris insert the medallion into his anus. Despite the only thing at stake being a PlayStation Network account, Chris decided this was an acceptable trade-off. As just stated, no video of this ordeal exists online, but Max can be heard laughing with sadistic glee as Chris repeats how miserable this whole experience is making him. Eventually, other members of the miscreants joined the call, and were horrified by what they saw, quickly turning on Max and telling him to cut it out. The sadist wasn't willing to give up his depraved fun so easily though, as he continued making increasingly crueler demands of Chris, such as telling him to burn his own house down. Luckily, by this point, Chris was realizing the tides were turning in his favor and finally had enough, telling Max that he would no longer do as asked. With the jig being up, Max dropped the bombshell reveal on Chris Chan. Julie never existed. As it turns out, both his sweetheart and Max had been characters played by the troll Blue Spike, a boy that was only 13 years of age. Blue Spike then threatened to report Chris to the FBI, as he had been having sexual conversations and sending explicit material to a minor for months. Hearing what was going down, Clyde joined the call and attempted to reel in the teenager's antics. He tried in vain to convince Chris that Julie was real and still being held hostage in Ohio, but at that point the damage was done. The 13-year-olds had torn down the entire facade that Clyde spent months building up. Despite his cruel methods, on some level, Clyde seemed to believe he was helping Chris take some control of his life and gain maturity. But Blue Spike didn't care about that, as he merely wanted the autistic man to suffer. The following day, Christian had a chat over Mumble with the miscreants sans Blue Spike, where he stated he felt sick after the previous day's events. There was a notable change of tone from the pranksters here, as they were clearly treating Chris more nicely, presumably out of a sense of guilt. That didn't stop them entirely, of course. Clyde Cash mentioned that he had Blue Spike killed for what he had done, to which Chris could only respond, "That's sad." For a short while after this incident, the trolls chose to back off, and Chris made a conscious effort to talk to fewer people over the World Wide Web. But as always, it wouldn't be long until both sides were back to their old ways. In fact, a new troll would soon enter the picture.
Good evening, citizens of YouTube. I must be quiet because it's at night. I don't want to wake up my parents, so please forgive me for not talking loud, and I hope all you can hear me.
Robert Simmons was a man who contacted Chris during the early days of the trolling, posing as an autistic Sonichu fan, and was able to quickly gain the gullible man's trust. The two maintained a friendly correspondence over the internet until March 15th, 2009, when Robert visited Chris's church in order to attend a service with him and Bob. Unbeknownst to the father and son, Robert was wearing a microphone to record the entire encounter. Nothing much of interest was said on this recording though. Robert and Bob chatted for a bit about the trolling Chris had been receiving, and Chris gave Robert his autograph. The real point of interest in this audio comes at the end, when Robert gets into his car and begins talking with an unidentified co-conspirator. The two of them appeared to be planning something, but at that point it was unclear exactly what this was. That same week, Chris received a phone call from a girl named Emily, asking if he'd be interested on going on a date with her. Still rebounding from Julie, Chris agreed, and the date was set for March 16th. It should go without saying at this point that Emily was a troll too. In fact, she was the one who had put the Encyclopedia Dramatica sign in Chris's yard a few months prior. The two decided to meet up at the now iconic Fashion Square Mall, Chris's former favorite spot for picking up women. When the day came, Chris arrived first, but quickly got too stressed out and left before Emily showed up. Even though she was a troll, this was still the closest thing to a real date Chris had ever been on. Upon arriving home, he posted a video apologizing to Emily, asking if they could reschedule for a new time for their date. In this upload, Chris also cites his parents as the reason for backing out at the last second.
But my mom was in disbelief, but yet also my father was in full belief, and still conflicting, all the conflicting opinions and whatnot. It just made me feel unsure.
He stated that if they did arrange a new day to go out on, he would not tell his mother about it. Shortly thereafter, the female troll and Chris got in contact once again, and the new date was set. On this second meeting attempt, it was Emily who arrived at the mall early. She wore a concealed microphone, and her friend covertly recorded the meeting in order to capture what they had planned. When Chris arrived, Emily and her cohorts were surprised to see him accompanied by Bob. The trio sat down for lunch at the food court, where Bob talked incessantly to Emily, with Chris barely getting a word in edgewise. Many speculated that the now elderly man liked to talk a lot because he was so starved for attention living with Chris and Barb that he would take any opportunity he could to interact with new people. Eventually, the father did leave the two alone, and Chris and Emily walked around the mall together. The romantically impaired man made some awkward attempts to flirt. He seemed to brag about taking a shower before the date, showed her his infamous Donald Duck impression, and compared her to a character from Sailor Moon. He also asked if he could put his hand on her shoulder, to which she responded, only for a little bit. After a while, Emily told Chris that she was ready to go home. This was the cue for her partner, a man wearing a pickle costume, to emerge from a nearby store and begin flirting with her. Chris was immediately suspicious of him, asking if he had any knowledge of Sonichu and 4chan, but he pretended to have no idea what Chris was talking about. He then tried to get the pickle man to back off, but Emily was clearly infatuated with him. The smooth-talking pickle man girlfriend stealer next inquired if she'd be interested in going to see a film with him, and much to Chris's dismay, Emily agreed. Chris could only watch as his first ever date left him for a man dressed as a fermented cucumber. After his failed love quest with Emily, Chris was ready to move on to the next girl. And as it turns out, only a few days prior, a young woman named Ivy O'Neill had called the Chandler household to ask if Chris could give her a shout out in a video. She also sent him all of the Sonichu fan art she had made, as well as art of her own original characters. At this point, people had figured out that the easiest way to win Chris's affection was to either appeal to his sexual desires or to send him Sonichu fan art. So of course he quickly became infatuated with the young lady. Almost immediately after they started talking, Ivy began testing the limits of what she could get Chris to do. On March 20th, only a few days after the relationship began, Chris posted a video telling her that he was in love. A week later, Chris recorded a cover of the song I Need a Hero at Ivy's request. He pretended to play music on his Guitar Hero controller. He also showed a few pages from a comic he was working on, in which he and Sonichu rescued Ivy from Clyde. It concluded with a drawing of a shirtless, unrealistically muscular Chris standing triumphantly with Ivy on the edge of a cliff, and waving his iconic sweater like a flag. Another video requested by his new sweetheart was a tour of Chris's house, which was posted on March 27th. This offered a rare insight into the everyday life and severe hoarding problems of the Chandler family. The kitchen counters were covered by layers of unwashed dishes. They had still not taken their Christmas tree down, and the living room was so full of clutter that it was no longer usable. It was at this moment that the miscreants realized that if this was Chris's reality, it's no wonder why he would rather live in a fantasy. This house tour actually got Chris in a bit of trouble a few months later in August, when his parents discovered it. It turns out that they were concerned that the health department might see the footage and force them to move out, and wanted him to figure out a way to fix it. His solution was to upload a video screaming at people about it.
Everyone on the internet, my mother and my father! I angry at me. They're blaming me. It's my fault. I admit it's my fault. I want everything about my house off the internet. I'll send in detectives. I'll send in police. I'll send in everything in my power to get it off the internet.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Shut that goddamn thing off. I don't care what you do. You get all that stuff off of there tonight.
I'm working on it.
Go work on it.
I am
Do
working.
you realize something? Let me tell you. If the health department of Greene County sees those videos that you put on the damn internet, they could condemn our house and we would have to move out of it.
I don't know where to
You
go.
loaded them up there, you unload them.
I'm working on it.
Go do it.
I am doing it. I'm sorry.
Get in here and do it. I don't want to get kicked out of my house by the health department. And what you just did was stick a knife in our back and kill us.
So yeah, please get everything off of the internet now, 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 now!
After this video went live, trolls began contacting the Greene County Health Department to report the Chandler family. Officials eventually did check the house out, but took no action due to the fact that the conditions of the home, terrible as they were, did not affect anyone beyond Chris, Bob, and Barbara. Going back to the spring of 2009, Chris rekindled his friendship with Joshua Martinez. This time, he managed to convince Chris that he had many friends in Hollywood, with him pretending to put the gullible man in contact with actress Vanessa Hudgens, and the two began a correspondence. Things rapidly became sexual between the two, with Chris even going so far as to tell the movie star that he loved her. However, the Sonic creator quickly felt guilty about this and came clean to Ivy about the affair. He even posted a couple of videos on the subject. The first was him apologizing and had his blow-up doll stand in for Ivy. The second was him reading a Bible verse about how adultery is a sin. During this whole ordeal, the miscreants also leaked a series of private videos Chris had made for Ivy. The first of these showed Mr. Chandler drinking his own seed, in order to prove that he could change how it tasted based off of what he ate. Strangely though, he chose to mix it with orange Fanta. The second was of Chris naked in the shower, slow dancing to an imaginary Ivy. Finally, the third was of him once again naked, spanking himself as punishment for cheating. If this wasn't embarrassing enough, they also leaked a series of photos showing Chris wearing nothing but his Sonic Chew medallion and an adult diaper. These were all punishments devised by Ivy to make up for the fact that he had an emotional affair with the star of High School Musical. All of this discipline only seemed to strengthen Chris's love for Ivy, as by April 24th, he posted a video of himself pretending to propose. He did this by producing a cover of the Celine Dion song, It's All Coming Back to Me, which he played in the background. It was followed up by Chris showing off his latest comic, Sonic Chew Special No. 2, which told the story of his dream wedding. A few days later, the miscreants leaked the follow-up, Sonic Chew Special No. 3. This was made as a gift to Ivy, and was only ever meant to be seen by her. The story followed the couple's honeymoon, and them consummating the marriage. As shown prior, Chris wasn't afraid to make his comics sexual, and this was no exception. According to some, Ivy encouraged Chris to make the drawings of his genitals as accurate as possible. His solution was to place his manhood on the paper and trace over it. This resulted in his character's package being roughly the same size as his entire body, leading many fans to nickname it the Giant Penis Comic. By May, Chris decided he wanted to better control the online conversation surrounding him. With this, he created an account on Wikipedia named Chris Chan Sonic Chew, and attempted to write up a page about himself on the site. This was quickly deleted though, as it included excessively detailed personal information, and the Wikipedia admins assumed it was created by a troll. This was not a total loss though, as CogsDev, the creator of the Quickie, decided to take the opportunity to create a new website called Wikipedia. where Chris could post about himself all he liked. Aside from YouTube, this would be Chris's primary space for communicating with the public, and the new home for the Sonic Chew comic. This same month, Chris was tricked once again by Joshua Martinez, who sold him a PSP at a drastically inflated price. For some reason, this excessive spending was the final nail in the coffin for Ivy, who decided to break up with Chris soon afterward. She also cited his infidelity as another reason for leaving, but it can probably be assumed that the troll behind the Ivy persona had just gotten bored and needed an excuse to give it up. For the 2 days afterward, Chris called his ex non-stop, begging her to take him back. It got so bad that she eventually had to call Bob to make Chris leave her alone. In an instant, one of Chris's most serious relationships had ended, and he barely understood why. Accepting the rejection and trying to move on, Chris posted a video saying he would be resuming his love quest, more specifically looking for a smoke-free, non-alcoholic, non-black woman. Most importantly, he claimed that he would no longer be talking to ladies over the internet, and would only accept offers from those who approached him in real life. It seemed to many that he had finally learned his lesson. To back this up, Chris began expanding his social life and friend circle with his new gal pal, Kim Wilson, as well as a couple of her friends. The thing is, Kim was actually Emily, the girl Chris had gone on a date with a few months prior. But as baffling as it may sound, he did not seem to recognize her. Kim posted a series of vlogs depicting her time with Chris. Despite the fact that she was a troll, it seemed like she actually wanted him to enjoy himself. Most notably, one of these videos showed Chris drinking a Long Island iced tea, which was his first ever alcoholic beverage. After years of vilifying people who drank, this was a rare moment of Chris stepping out of his comfort zone. As Christian continued hanging out with Kim and her friends, he began getting a lot more confident. In July, a video was recorded with the help of a buddy titled Rollin' and Trollin', in which he gave a tour of Charlottesville while pretending it was Quickville. The most notable thing in this video was Chris's change in appearance. His famous blue and red striped sweater had been replaced with a blue t-shirt and a vest, and his Sonic Chew medallion had been exchanged for dog tags. He wore tattoo sleeves, sunglasses, spiked bracelets, had grown a goatee, and was altering his voice. This was all done in an attempt to convince the trolls that Chris Chan had been a character this whole time, and that, in reality, he was neurotypical and fully employed. Around this time, a troll going by the name Samantha Thaddeus hacked into Chris's PSN and Club Nintendo accounts. After some emailing back and forth, with them quoting Bible verses at each other, Chris was then put in contact with Samantha's father, Jack Thaddeus. Just like many of the other trolls in the past, Jack used his position of power to see what absurd things he could get Chris to do. This included a gratuitous video of Chris humping his PlayStation 3 for 8 whole minutes straight, as well as one of him singing the song "It's Okay to Be Gay." As usual, the latter of these two uploads was not satisfactory, as Chris spent the whole gay announcement with his voice filled with disgust. Because of this, he demanded a second take. In this new version, Chris wore novelty nose and mustache glasses, a hat, and a skirt taken from his blow-up doll. He also changed the lyrics in the final line to "It's not okay to be gay," as he took off the glasses, all in an attempt to circumvent the troll's demand for him to come out of the closet. Jack next requested that Chris make a puppet show of Sonic and Tails making love, but this seemed to be a line Chris was not willing to cross, as he told Jack that getting his accounts back was not worth the humiliation. Even with that being said, Samantha's father was still able to convince Chris that the miscreants were cooking up a scheme to get his social security payments taken away, as he had apparently revealed himself to not actually have autism in his Rollin' and Trollin' video. In response, Chris posted an upload clarifying that he was, in fact, unemployed and autistic. Inexplicably, all of the audio in this video was entirely through ADR.
I don't have a job, so there, and I am high-functionally autistic, and I'm nearsighted, still a virgin, so there you go.
To most onlookers, Jack wasn't anything too special when it came to Chris's ever-growing gallery of trolls. However, he did open the door to the next big saga. You see, as he and Chris continued emailing, Jack sent him a link to a new video by a brand new player in the story, a young man claiming that he was the real Christian Weston Chandler. It goes without saying that Chris would not take this very well.
Captain's log. Stardate, June 21st, 2009. My name is Christian Weston Chandler.
In the summer of 2009, one of Chris's most infamous adversaries appeared on the scene. This troll had actually been posting videos since June on the YouTube channel C-Chan Sonic Chew Quick, before gaining much of a following, but that would soon change. What made him stick out from the pack was that he pretended to be Chris, doing a near spot-on imitation at that, copying his quirks and manner of speaking. He wore a brown and yellow striped sweater which he padded out with a pillow to make himself appear obese, and had a paper Sonic Chew medallion around his neck. He mimicked Chris's past antics such as his song So Need a Cute Girl, the time he was forced to make a video saying that he was gay, and his eternal feud with Clyde Cash. Trolls began referring to him as Liquid Chris, with the original now being referred to as Solid Chris, a reference to the Metal Gear video game series. The first upload that Solid Chris saw from Liquid was one in which he was claiming to sell Sonic Chew merchandise. As was displayed in the Jimmy Hill saga almost a year prior, Chris could not stand the idea of others profiting off his characters. He quickly posted an angry upload decrying Liquid.
Do not buy any more from this crappy imposter. Do not give him any more money. And he said he's going to give it to, quote-unquote, his congregation with my Elizabeth Foss. It's my congregation, not his. Who does imposter think he is? Down with him! Burn in hell!
Apparently, Chris still hadn't caught up to the established pattern, as this response only added fuel to the fire, and made Liquid go further with his scheme. Anytime Christian posted a video, Liquid would post one of his own to one-up him. For example, on July 29th, Chris made a recording of himself playing the song More Than a Feeling on Guitar Hero. Mere hours later, Liquid had posted one himself, playing the same song on an actual guitar. Trolls quickly took notice of how angry Chris got at the idea that people might believe Liquid to be the real Christian Weston Chandler. As such, they decided to start circulating a rumor that Solid Chris was actually named Ian Brandon Anderson, due to the fact that his then current YouTube channel was called IBA Chandler. It didn't take long for Chris to get completely fed up with Liquid's shenanigans. To decide once and for all who the imposter was, he devised a scheme challenging Liquid to a musical competition, which he dubbed the Sing Star Challenge. The rules to this contest were odd and convoluted, and seemed specifically tailored to benefit Chris. It would consist of 5 rounds, and in each one both contestants would choose a new song to sing. As a finale, they would each choose a song for their competitor. In addition, they were not allowed to use instruments, but were required to have an MP3 of the song playing in the background. Finally, the contest was to have 6 judges, with both Chris and Liquid selecting 3. Christian chose his friend Kim Wilson, one of her male friends who remained unnamed, and a new online gal pal named Kate Bay. Liquid selected his girlfriend Casey, his friend Seth, and an animator by the name of SpazKid. Chris decided to end this video by asserting his dominance over Liquid. He took a razor and, without the use of shaving cream, aggressively shaved the goatee he had been growing for the past few weeks. With the gauntlet thrown, the Sing Star Challenge was officially on. To put it simply, the competition was heated, and lasted throughout the first week of August. Chris, of course, tried whatever tactic he could think of to hinder Liquid's chances of success. In the second round, Liquid chose to sing the theme song from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Christian angrily took to the video's comments to accuse him of cheating, since he claimed that theme songs were not allowed by the rules. Even though Chris himself had decided the rules specifically to benefit him, it seemed as though he was willing to bend them any way he saw fit. Nevertheless, the judges did not agree with his objection. The challenge proceeded normally for the next few days until the 5th and final round. As previously established, this was when Chris would choose a song for Liquid to sing and vice versa. It was without a doubt the most hotly contested round of the entire SingStar saga, beginning with Chris performing the tune Liquid chose for him, Smell Yo Dick by Risque. However, he opted to change the titular lyric to duck due to his discomfort with the phallic implication. Liquid was quick to call him out on this, forcing Chris to post a new version in which he sang the uncensored lines even though he clearly didn't want to. As for Liquid, Chris chose for him to perform Lift Up Your Eyes by the Planet Shakers. However, he did not sing the entire song, as the full version was almost 10 minutes in length. This provoked a furious response from Christian, who demanded that Liquid redo his entry with the full version or be disqualified. Chris also claimed that he had gotten the police involved to investigate Liquid, but walked back the claim almost instantly. The Autistic Man's imposter soon uploaded his new video with the complete song, and the SingStar challenge was officially complete. All that was left was for the judges to cast their votes. In the end, Liquid Chris was declared the winner after 4 of the 6 judges selected him. The deciding vote came from Kate Bay, Solid Chris's newest online gal pal. He begged her over email to change her mind, but she wouldn't budge. According to his own rules, this officially made Liquid Chris the true and honest Christian Weston Chandler. Of course, Ian Brandon Anderson did not take this defeat laying down. Despite losing fair and square, he quickly uploaded another video to prove that he was the one and only Chris Chan. To accomplish this, he publicly stated his address and phone number, inviting anybody to come over to his house and meet him. Unlike most other times when personal information about Mr. Chandler was revealed, this was not done through leaks or manipulation. Chris was simply so irate at the idea of anybody believing that he was not the real Christian Chandler that he willingly doxed himself. Meanwhile, after achieving victory in the SingStar challenge, Liquid Chris posted an update video about his life. He thanked the judges for voting for him and stated that he had recently proposed to his sweetheart Casey. On top of this, he also claimed to have gotten a job at a video game studio in Redmond, Washington. This was most likely a reference to the Miyamoto saga from earlier. He concluded that, due to his new career move, he would officially be leaving the internet to focus on his new life. Liquid walked off camera as the song We'll Meet Again played ominously in the background, seemingly indicating that his saga was not quite finished just yet. Over the course of the SingStar challenge, Solid Chris came in contact with Liquid's sweetheart Casey. They began talking semi-frequently over the phone and email, and she even joined him on one of his days out with Kim Wilson in real life. As they got to know each other better, it was clear that Chris's feelings for his new gal pal became more than just platonic friendship. Casey was quick to leverage this affection, learning even more details about the Chandlers' private life. During their many phone calls, Chris was more than happy to talk to Casey about his daily habits. According to him, he had been taking medication for high cholesterol due to the fact that pretty much all of his meals came in the form of fast food. When Casey reacted in shock, Chris was quick to clarify he often ordered salads from these establishments. Apparently, the reason for this constant eating out was due to the already established clutter in the Chandler kitchen, which made it impossible for any cooking to be done. When questioned about his physical activity, Chris stated his only exercise came from his daily walks around the neighborhood, which were enough for him to work up a sweat. Solid Chris didn't seem to see a problem with his lifestyle, but Casey became determined to get him to eat better and exercise more. She offered to take Chris jogging, an idea which he was initially hesitant about since he was worried his chest would bounce around too much. However, once Casey suggested he could wear a sports bra, he rapidly warmed up to the idea. He quickly purchased a piece of the female apparel, sent Casey a photo of himself wearing it, and commented on how confident it made him feel. Casey also encouraged Chris to get out of the house more. He began attending what he described as a relationship development class, which he hoped would help build up his confidence about talking to women in person. He compared it to his idea of dating education class, a concept he had been trying to get schools to implement for years alongside sex ed. Chris also applied for a job at Target. Going through with this took a lot more convincing from Casey than she first thought, as Chris was concerned that getting a job would impact his monthly Social Security checks. He never received a call back, but it cannot be overstated how much of a big step it was for Chris to apply in the first place, considering he had been arrested at Target only a few years prior. In October, after months away from the internet, Liquid Chris returned with a new video. He claimed that he had not made it to his job in Redmond, Washington, as while riding the bus there, he had been drugged and kidnapped by Solid Chris. He then stated that he woke up in the Sahara Desert with blood oozing from his anus. Chris was quick to deny the story.
I mean, come on, his story. I mean, like, you know, being put in a meat factory, Sahara Desert, Aladdin people? Huh. And also, he could easily taken the drugs himself.
Upon his return, Liquid immediately reignited the feud, claiming that Casey had begun to fall in love with Solid Chris during his time away. But as soon as Liquid returned, she immediately fell back in love with the winner of the contest. This worked incredibly well in riling up the potential Target employee. He soon publicly stated his love for Casey, and the battle for her affection was on. Like their previous battle, this was really nothing more than the two of them making videos back and forth. On October 29th, Christian uploaded a diss track against Liquid, sung over the song Walk This Way. By the end, it simply devolved into Chris flipping through his playlist and using each new song to insult Liquid. It was here that Chris claimed Casey was now dating him, which was not true at all. Liquid was quick to respond with his own diss track, rapping to the beat of Eminem's My Name Is. As Solid vs. Liquid round 2 progressed, Casey and the Miscreants devised a way to up the ante, when on November 4th she called Chris and said she wanted him to meet her parents. This was when Casey handed her phone off to a fellow prankster posing as her father, Matthew. It was almost immediately apparent that the point of this chat was to make Christian as uncomfortable as possible. Every time he revealed a new detail about his life, Matthew would grill him on it and express his disapproval. After enduring this for nearly an hour, Chris told Matthew that he had crossed a line. This did not go over well, and the call ended with both Casey and her father being upset. The saga came to a head on November 10th when Chris and Casey had their final phone call. Christian remained largely silent as she grilled him about his behavior towards her father, and how he had seemed to take no significant steps in improving his lifestyle. She informed Chris that she and Liquid would be getting married soon, and that she no longer wanted to be his friend. Later that day, Chris posted a tear-filled video giving Casey and Liquid his blessing.
Congratulations on your wedding. I wish you and Chris all happiness in the world.
The supposed reason for Chris Chan making this video was to share the other things he wanted to tell Casey before she hung up on him. It seemed like this ordeal had once again left Chris emotionally destroyed. But as Casey even predicted, it wouldn't be long until he had forgotten about all of this and moved on to his next big saga.
Captain's Log, Stardate, November 12th, 2009. It's now time for fan mail. Well, not much fan mail, as it is a little something from the Virginia Library of Congress.
Only a couple days after Liquid Chris had ended his storyline, our protagonist uploaded a new video in which his moods seemed to have done a complete 180. Christian happily displayed a letter showing he had officially registered the name Sonichu with the Virginia Library of Congress. From the very beginning, people had mocked the idea of Sonichu, saying there was no way Chris would be allowed to make money off of the characters without being sued by both Nintendo and Sega. Chris had always refuted this though, saying that Sonichu was different enough from the pre-existing properties that it could stand on its own. He seemed to believe that this registration completely validated him, but it's important to note that it was far from a copyright. On November 23rd, Chris noticed some new advertisements that were being showcased on Wikipedia. One depicted Peter Griffin from Family Guy supporting gay rights, and the other showed a Pickle Man mascot promoting a contest for a free trip to Mexico. Chris was irate that these messages were being displayed on his website, and emailed the system's operator, CogsDev, to get them taken down. In response, the admin told him that there was nothing to be done, as the ad space had been purchased legally by Chris's old enemy, Jack Thaddeus. This opened a brand new door for trolls as they found yet another way to drive their target insane. Shortly thereafter, Chris uploaded a video asking his fans for donations in order to remove the ads. Strangely, he chose to single out his European fans, as it seemed he had recently developed a fascination with Europe and its currency. He also expressed his interest in finding official sponsors for the website, with his eyes set on Coca-Cola. As the months continued, Chris's fury at these gay pride ads only grew stronger. In one video, he even claimed that he taped pieces of paper to his computer screen so he didn't have to see them whenever he logged on to the site. By the end of the year, he had reached his limits, editing Wikipedia himself, removing Jack's ads, and replacing them with fake advertisements for Coke and the James Cameron film Avatar. These were quickly taken down, and Chris was informed by CogsDev that they had received a cease and desist order from Coca-Cola, although this was most likely a lie. After this incident, Chris's administrative privileges were revoked. Also around this general time period, Chris began doing a daily mailbag on the Wikipedia. Basically, this was his opportunity to respond to fan emails, speaking with them directly and answering their questions. He would usually give short responses, rarely more than a single sentence, and many wondered if he actually cared at all about it or if it was just simply something CogsDev talked him into. The most interesting bit of information from these, though, was the revelation that Christian had a bizarre and irrational hatred of people with Asperger's syndrome. He seemed to believe that their struggles were nothing compared to those of people with autism, and he despised the fact that the two were often lumped together. This is when an artist by the name of Alec Benson Leary created a comic called Asperchew, taking advantage not only of Chris's hatred of Asperger's, but also his insistence that he own the copyright to Sonichu. This comic was clearly a parody of Chris in his life, with the Asperchew character even looking like Christian. These illustrations in the publication also included a human character that too had an uncanny resemblance to Chris Chan, named Ian Brandon Anderson. Upon discovering Asperchew, Chris became enraged. Alec began emailing him apologetically, trying to smooth things out between the two of them. In these emails, Alec included art of Asperchew and Sonichu together, which only angered Chris further, as he believed they were trying to portray the two as being in a homosexual relationship.
You have done wrong with this drawing. It only depicts the opposite of straight, you DA. There may be a human character coming into the books with Asperger's, but there will certainly never be a Sonichu or Roastechu with that ailment.
Later in December, Chris received an email from a young man named Evan claiming that Chris had stolen his character and used it in his comic without permission. Evan was actually the first person to ever send Chris Sonichu fan art all the way back in 2008. Among these drawings was one of Evan's original Sonichu character, a hedgehog with drills for hands named Simonshu. A short time later, Chris had introduced his own character with drills for hands named Simon Law. The resemblance between the two was undeniable, and it was obvious to any passive observer that Chris had ripped off Evan. Because of this, he requested that Chris kill off his Simon Law character, but he vehemently refused, calling Evan a monster for even suggesting such a thing. While he scoffed off Evan's demand for now, this would not be the end of the feud. At the start of 2010, the ad space on the Wikipedia, once belonging to Jack Thaddeus, was purchased by a new advertiser. This would normally be a relief for Chris, that is, if it wasn't for the person who had taken over the sponsorship, Alec Benson Leary, who quickly co-opted Chris's website to advertise Asperchew comics, as well as his new website, Asperpedia. This spurned Chris to create a video in which he raged against these advertisements. He accused Alec of being nothing more than a plagiarist, and called Asperchew a dirty parody of Sonic Chew. This was a strange choice of words for Chris, as in the past he had defended Sonic Chew's existence with the very same parody reasoning. As always, Chris emailed CogsDev to try to get these new ads taken down to no avail. No matter how much he pleaded, she would not budge, claiming that Alec had paid for the ad space all the way through the year, and that Chris would just have to live with it. This only served to anger him further, as he made another video a few days later threatening to ruin Alec before punching the camera.
I'm gonna ruin you, Larry. I'm so angry.
The longer Alec's ads stayed up on the Wikipedia, the angrier Chris became. On January 15th, he posted another video directed at not just Alec, but a few of his friends as well. These included Asperpedia's webmaster Mao Ling, Sean August Watley, a frequent Asperpedia contributor, and Evan. Together, these men would later be known as the Asperpedia 4. The upload concludes with Chris challenging all of them to a fight, to decide once and for all who was superior. He even read out his home address yet again so they could come face him directly. As January continued, Chris posted more and more uploads about his hatred for Alec and the Asperpedia 4. In fact, mere hours later, he made a rant in which he spoke a Spanish phrase backwards that he believed translated to "love Sonic Chew and hate Asperchew." Confused, trolls were able to trace this back to an episode of The Simpsons, where a similar backwards-speaking tactic is used to try to brainwash people to join the Navy. On the 17th, Chris uploaded yet another video about his feelings toward Alec. In this one, he reviewed the Asperchew comic, detailing every single thing he hated about it. Of course, the main thing he took offense to was how it depicted him, specifically citing the fact that Asperchew had a quote-unquote Buddha belly. He went on to criticize its anti-religious themes, as well as the excessive violence and nudity. To that last point, Chris did address the fact that Sonic Chew had seen its fair share of nudity as well. However, he had defended it by stating it had all been censored, seemingly ignoring the fact that he had originally posted it all uncensored. The irate man concluded this video by claiming he would be getting the FBI involved in the case, and telling Alec that the spirit of his dog Patty would haunt his nightmares and eat his soul. After this, Chris and Alec finally began communicating with each other directly over the phone. Their first conversation began on the subject of the promotions placed on the Wikipedia. Surprisingly, Chris seemed ready to compromise on this matter, saying he wouldn't mind so much if the ads were regulated only to the site's sidebars. In addition, he also said that he should be able to run his own ads on Asperpedia just to make things fair. To both of these points, Alex seemed to be willing to cooperate, although it appears nothing much came of it. These discussions next moved on to the subject of Alex's use of Sonic Chew characters in his comic. Chris demanded he stop, or at least change their names, but Alex stood his ground. For some reason, the topic was shifted to Alec and Chris pointing out the various lore differences between the two universes, such as the fact that in his world, Sonic Chew was a Pokemon, while in Alec's, he was just a species of animal. This led the troll to his next argument. If Chris insisted that Sonic Chew was a Pokemon, how could he then claim to own the full copyright to him? Chris obviously had no answer to this question, as he uncomfortably tried to shift the topic back to the original subject of the ads, but Alec continued pressing, and eventually Chris made up a lie about his cell phone running out of battery, ending the discussion. Their next call would take place around a week later. Chris expressed his displeasure with the name Asperchew on the grounds that it was mean towards the character. He seemed to be arguing from the perspective that Asperchew had the same feelings as a real person, citing the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit to bolster his point. When Alec tried to make Chris see that there was a difference between the thoughts and feelings of real people and fictional characters, Chris simply called him naive. Realizing that this conversation was going nowhere, Alec shifted the topic to Chris's continued use of Simon Law in his comic despite Evan's objections. Chris dug his heels in, insisting that Simon Law had not been inspired in any way by Simon Chew. Alec pointed out by Chris's own logic that there was a possibility Asperchew was not based on Sonic Chew. On top of that, he also read off of Chris's official Wikipedia page about Simon Law, where he directly credited Simon Chew as being the basis for the character. Chris was once again backed into a corner, and he was forced to say he would consider writing Simon Law out of his comic. As these regular phone calls continued, Alec began asking Chris to publicly apologize for the things he had said about the Asperpedia 4. He eventually relented to this point, but Alec was not happy with the apology he made, as he spent most of the video expressing his continued frustration with the ads on the website. It seemed to him that Chris Chan was not actually sincerely sorry, and was only apologizing in the hopes that it would make Alec remove his advertisements. The second apology was equally poor. He was at least able to name the things he was sorry for, specifically the threats he made against Alec and his theft of Evan's Simon Chew character. He carefully worded it as to not technically give up the rights to Simon Law, only Simon Chew. As if this weren't enough, just a few hours earlier, Chris had made a video cursing and threatening Mao over new pro-gay ads that were appearing on the Wikipedia. Eventually, Alex stopped asking Chris for more apology videos, as it became increasingly clear that he would never learn his lesson. The way the man spoke to Chris was like a parent disciplining a child. Unlike many of the other trolls who just wanted to see a reaction, it seemed like Alec had a genuine desire to make Chris see the error of his ways. But as you would soon discover, this strategy didn't work. February 25th, 2010 was a big day in Chris Chan history, as it marked the publication of Sonic Chew number 10, which would prove to be one of the most bombastic comics he had ever made, because it attempted to exact revenge on practically every troll who had ever wronged him over the past year. The story opens with Chris being released from the time void he had been trapped in several issues prior. He detailed what had transpired while he was away, how he had traveled to the future and met his wife, a woman named Lovely Weather. She was a scientist working on a vaccine for homosexuality, which she was finally able to complete using a sample of Chris's pure straight blood. Chris then traveled back to the present and used the vaccine on his nemesis Natesurk, turning him heterosexual again and as a result redeeming his character. Later in the issue, Chris stated that he meant no offense to his homosexual fans, and that he only included this plot point in order to convince his trolls that he wasn't gay. It didn't work. Next, he grabbed his trusty Guitar Hero controller, which transformed him from a drawing to a photograph of himself. Chris and his band, the Hedgehog Boys, played his original song, Revive Zordon, a Power Rangers parody of Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent. The tune was played so loud that it caused the 4-cent garbage building to crumble. As everything collapsed around them, Clyde Cash and Jack Thaddeus grabbed one another by the hand and fell to their deaths. In Chris's mind, this was meant to humiliate them, implying that they were gay just before killing them off. To his dismay though, most readers thought this came off as a surprisingly touching and tragic end to the two characters. Once the tower came down, Chris lamented the fact that the trolls forced him to do such a thing. and added the detail that there were 1,500 people inside the 4 Cent Garbage headquarters when it was destroyed. The final part of the story came when Chris traveled to the home of Alec Benson Leary and wiped all of the contents of Asperpedia from the internet. Despite the fact that this issue was all about him getting back at the trolls, he did use this section to somewhat honor the wishes of Alec and Evan by killing off Simon Law. Yet he did this in his own spiteful way, depicting Evan as the one to kill her by planting an exploding Pokemon in her bathroom. Following the lengthy courtroom scene, the entire Asperpedia 4 were found guilty of Simon Law's murder and sentenced to death. Each of them received a different grisly fate. Alec was put in an electric chair, with 10 of Chris's characters simultaneously pushing the button to end his life. Evan was chained to a wall and sliced to pieces by Simon Law's husband and her recently born daughter, Sandy. Sean was also chained to a wall and shot multiple times, leaving his body bloody and riddled with bullets. Finally, Chris personally used his psychic powers to mutilate and butcher Mao. Upon reading this, Alec called the comic book creator once again, this time to talk about his shock at how he and his friends were depicted in Sonic Chew 10. He asked Chris if he understood the hypocrisy of showing such gratuitous violence in his comic, when he had previously criticized Asperchew for the same thing. But Chris defended himself by saying he had only done it because of how angry he was that they made him kill Simon Law. To that point, Alec mentioned that Chris had effectively broken his end of the agreement by introducing the character of Sandy, who was basically just a new version of Evan's creation. Chris, of course, disagreed, and this arguing ultimately went nowhere. This would be their final phone call.
Are you positive you really understand how I feel about you, Mr. Hans Asperger? Yeah. Yeah? Baka! I feel dislike towards you for selfishly putting your ill name in association with autism.
At the same time he was dealing with the Asperpedia 4, Chris had also begun attending a young adult social club in hopes of meeting new people, and drumming up more interest in Sonic Chew. It was here that he met a young woman who he referred to as the Wallflower in order to respect her wishes of remaining anonymous on the internet. The two of them seemed to hit it off quite well at first, although she was quick to inform Christian that she was not looking for a relationship, and only wanted to be friends. Chris, being Chris, however, still thought it would be a good idea to escalate things. The now 28-year-old man and the Wallflower emailed back and forth frequently over the coming months, and eventually decided to start collaborating on a fantasy story together. During this correspondence, Chris continued to try to get closer with her. This only served to make the young woman more uncomfortable though, as she requested Chris limit the visits he had apparently been making to her home.
I don't want to sound mean or anything, but I would like some space between visits. I like you and you're nice, but I only just met you. I am in no mood for an actual relationship. And during the once-a-month thing, I want to visit with the other young adults too.
On March 9th, Chris posted a custom level he had been making on the game Little Big Planet titled The Guardians of the Owl Kingdom. This was meant as an adaptation of the fantasy story he had begun writing with the Wallflower. In the level's description, Christian referred to his co-writer by her online name, Damien Antaria. The trolls were quickly able to use this information to track down the Wallflower's true identity, and decided to email her a link to the quickie. To put it mildly, she was horrified that her private information had been discovered, and was even more disturbed by the things she read on the site. She emailed Chris furious about the entire situation, demanding he find some way to remove all the info about her from the internet. Chris tried to explain, blaming the trolls for all his problems, and concluded his email by saying he loved her, which seemed to be the last straw.
I don't love you and I hate you for this. Everything was fine until I met you. I don't know why I took up Mom's offer to go to the social club. I had enough friends here at home and on the internet.
As Chris was reeling from yet another loss of a gal pal, he received an email from a troll calling himself Surfshack Tito, claiming to be the one who sent the Wallflower the link to the quickie. He differentiated himself from the other trolls by taking on the persona of a pre-established character from the cartoon Rocket Power, often ending his emails with the same words of wisdom given by his fictional counterpart on the show. Chris decided to email the Wallflower in order to warn her about this new Nickelodeon-themed troll, but she still wanted nothing to do with him, telling Chris that she had a boyfriend now, although this was most likely a lie, so he'd leave her alone. For some reason, Chris assumed that her new boyfriend was Tito, going so far as to post a video threatening him in the hopes of getting the Wallflower back. Despite her wishes to remain anonymous, Chris accidentally said the Wallflower's real name twice in this upload. This upload is also memorable because Chris decided to wear a kilt and blast Celtic music in the background while threatening his new foe. This was because of the Wallflower's love of the band Celtic Woman. Later that day, he uploaded another video directed at the poor young girl, begging her not to leave him. He started by expressing his confusion over the fact that she had a new boyfriend even though she had told him multiple times that she was not interested in a relationship. He then sang a cover of Avril Lavigne's hit song Girlfriend, except he changed the lyrics to I don't like your boyfriend. Chris continued his attack on Surfshack Tito over the following days. He sent him many threatening emails, including a photograph of himself flipping off his enemy. On March 17th, this hit a boiling point when Chris uploaded one more video directed at his nemesis.
And if you go near her again, and I will find you. I will find you. I will cut you up. I'll beat you up. I'll knock you on your backside, stand on your gut like a log roller, and roll your fat right through your skull. Throwing it wide open. Because that's what you deserve, you goddamn womanizing, raping, trolling, stupid, pickle-suited n***er.
This video horrified the current owner of the Wikipedia ad space, who as a result decided to give it back to the Asperpedia 4. Somehow, in the transition though, Alec and his friends got editing access to the Wikipedia. With a short opening to wreak havoc before being booted, they quickly began answering all the mailbag emails on the wiki, and made a blog post pretending to be Chris coming out of the closet. They then opened editing to the public, which caused the site to be ruined beyond repair. Shortly after, Wikipedia was locked down completely. On March 21st, Chris posted a video reflecting on the events of the past few days. He blamed Tito for everything, taking no personal responsibility for his behavior, including saying the N-word. He also referred to the Wallflower yet again as his girlfriend, showing that he still did not understand she never had any romantic interest regarding him. The video concludes with him stating that he had let the trolls ruin too much of his life, and would be leaving the internet permanently. For nearly 2 years at this point, Chris had been the target of non-stop trolling. The miscreants really had turned the man's world into a cartoon. There was a seemingly never-ending parade of villains, each with their own quirks and gimmicks, most of the time having the goal to make Chris's life a living hell. Some did seem to make a genuine effort to snap him out of this delusion, but by that point it was too late. Even after Chris's recorded farewell, the ever-growing audience watching these shenanigans unfold knew it wasn't a question of if he would come back, but when. And as they all had a good chuckle at the most recent misadventures of this troubled autistic comic creator, little did they realize that eventually Chris Chan's life would be ruined beyond repair, leading even the most ardent of his trolls to wonder if they had finally gone too far.
Do you like Indian food?
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, right. India. I could go for Indian or Chinese.
Taste of India. This is one of my favorite places.
Okay. Oh, Taste of India. It smells good in here.
I'll ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty empty.
Oh boy, I'm gonna. Okay, now I just feel like I have to do this. First time in here, I feel like I gotta do this. Hello, my name is Apu. I went to.
No. You don't have to do that. That's all right.
Welcome to Quickie Mart.
Hello. Hey.
First time coming here. This is a lovely place. I'm surprised. I mean, I walked the mall many times and didn't think of coming in here.
Yeah.
Feels really good. Smells good.
So you like Indian food?
I'm open. I keep an open mind for all kinds of food. So, I mean, if there's something I don't like, then well, at least I tried it once. Yeah, and I'd definitely be open-minded for trying some haggis if I ever go visit Scotland or something.
What is haggis?
Sheep guts.
Oh.
I never noticed this, but oh Susanna, don't you cry for me? I come from Alabama with the banjo on my knee. Twang, 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 twang.
Oh, excuse me. Is it possible that we can get a picture? You're the owner of Sonic Shoe, right?
Yes!
Yeah! Can we get a picture?
Yes.
Do you want me to take it for you guys?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. I couldn't believe it. I saw you and I was like...
That's awesome.
Yes, hello.
There you go.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Take care. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's very humbling.
Yeah, I've never.
So you don't get people coming up to you too often?
I'd say on average, probably like once or twice a month.
Okay.
But it's very humbling and good when it happens.
It happens.
Yeah, but anyway, that was one side of the park with the statue. It would come up on the other side of the park and on the side of the street where the library is at. Right there.
Right.
And I want to get into the love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is good. Set her in.
Yeah.
Set her in and I'll do my thing.
Alright.
That's all, folks.